landlords? Hello?
High priest.
Ow!
What's he gonna think if he buys one of the gods like this with me?
Lucky God?
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this creative podcast.
And I'm Rich, and I'm the other host of this creative podcast. Think of me as the boulder to Dave's Indiana Jones. He's quite possibly the coolest man on the planet, and I'm a large mossy rock.
Thank you. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we often drift off and talk about other things, sometimes movies, sometimes life in general.
And we do like to drop big fat spoilers, and they're completely by accident. So if we mention a film you haven't seen and you don't want it ruined, then go off, reorganise your record collection, you know it's a mess, and then come back to us. On today's episode, we are joined by Russell Bailey.
Russell is the brilliant host of one of our favourite podcasts, the Not Just for Kids podcast. It's all about things that you might think have been made for kids, but actually adults really love.
We were very excited to sit down with Russell and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Russell Bailey's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
What was the first memory of a sequel you ever have?
The Lost World, I think. I think it's the second Jurassic Park. I was like, I'm umming over my head if it's this or episode 1 of Star Wars, but it's probably got to be the Lost World. Like, that's got to be the one that so I've much more distinctive memories of watching the first Jurassic Park because I made it to like the second T-Rex scene and then was taken out of the cinema because I'd spent about 25 minutes crouched down in the footwell peeping over because I was that terrified. And Jurassic Park is my favourite film I've made, and I've learned to love it.
Yeah,
and
me too,
I would
mate.
definitely have gone and seen The Lost World in the cinema. I don't love it. I didn't even love it at the time. It didn't gel for me when I was a
So
kid.
you didn't hide behind a seat on that one?
No,
was
I
that
don't
in
think
the
so.
cinema?
I was in the
Lost
cinema.
World?
And I was a bit older, and like I just remember with Jurassic Park, I'd always been scared in the first scene for like 3 or 4 years afterwards, and then I kind of got over it. There's nothing in this one for me that was as scary as that kind of opening of when they're trying to transport the Velociraptor and it kills the person, because that's like, you can't see anything, and it's all done with
noise.
What you can't see and noise and their dialogue and their reaction. There's nothing in the Lost World
Spielberg,
like that.
isn't it? You don't have to see it.
Yeah, so it's got to be the Lost World, I think. I definitely went with my dad. He definitely took me to that, which was, brave of him because he took me to the first one and missed the second half of the film, so I had to go watch it again with someone else. Yeah, so it would have been the Lost World. I would have gone and watched that. Yeah, and I've seen all the Jurassic Park films in the cinema. So yeah,
Oh, you're a devoted fan then.
I'm a devoted fan.
And how do you feel about the Jurassic World Park franchise as a whole? Listeners, he's got his hands in his face, so that can't be. Do you want to start with the old ones and work our way through?
Well, yeah. So I like Jurassic Park 3. I'm a rare person who likes Jurassic Park 3 because by that point the franchise has got kind of dumb, and I'm like, this is a dumb Saturday morning cartoon, and I like the Spinosaurus because it's dumb. Like, stupidity of Jurassic Park 3 is endearing to me. I like Jurassic World up until they start talking about weaponizing dinosaurs, and you get Chris Pratt on a motorbike with velociraptors around him, and I'm like, I think you've gone down the wrong path here. I think what I wanted was just a park with dinosaurs. That's all we really wanted. And now you're talking to this. I think the Fallen Kingdom is the best directed and worst written of the sequels. Wow. I think some of the direction is beautiful. I think the opening bit where the guy's hacking in and is going to open up the gate and then there's a T-Rex stalking him is delightful. And I think the bit where like there's the random dinosaur, I forget its name, is stalking them and like it's on the roof roaring. It's all gothic horror, but man, that plot is a meringue of terribleness. And then Dominion is awful. Dominion is awful. I have no idea why you'd make a Jurassic Park film that doesn't care about dinosaurs. I have no idea what the thing is about locusts. I don't know why you'd bring back all that cast and do nothing with them. Chris Pratt looks incredibly bored in it. It's a running joke with some people that they can say locusts to me, and I get kind of a bit like in the Simpson episode where Homer, I think it's Who Shot Mr. Burns, and he like realizes he's not in the letter, and his eyes like go to like little pin pricks, and then it cuts to him, and Ned goes, "That's the loudest profanity I've ever heard." That's basically how I feel a bit about Dominion, and
You are
I
not
caveat
alone.
it with that I've talked to people who've worked on it or like have relatives that have worked on it, and what they did to get around COVID is remarkable. Like the testing regimes, the kind of levels of who could interact with who is remarkable. And I think a lot of what I don't like about it is kind of created so they could make it during the pandemic. So like that they go to yet another park and that you have to separate everyone so there's only 2 or 3 people together at any one time.
And what we really wanted was The Walking Dead with dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
We wanted an actual Jurassic World.
Yeah, wanted fun human interactions with dinosaurs. Like that, they've got a short where the T-Rex, I think, attacks this like trailer park.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
great,
tense and it's exciting. And there's none of that in Dominion. And they even had the first teaser is like a T-Rex attacking a drive-in cinema, and that's not in the film. And it feels just like I think they're trying to set up like next installments that don't involve Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. So I guess the pilot, whose name escapes
their
me,
chemistry is essentially
she's trying to be set up as like this like spin-off character. But yeah, somehow we end up in the exact same place we do in Fallen Kingdom at the end of Dominion, where like dinosaurs are loose on the planet. Like, yes, you did that in the last one. Please do something with it. And Dodson being the villain, as a Jurassic Park fan, I hate, because in his one scene in Jurassic Park, Dennis says his name repeatedly and says, "See, no one cares," and then says, "Nice hat. What are you trying to be, a spy?" So it's like it's going against the 2 things about him, which is no one cares who this person is, and the kind of corporate shenanigans by Biosyn. And we probably shouldn't even get into their name because, good grief,
They're called bloody Biosyn.
like, who could be unleashing these like evil locusts that are only attacking crops that don't use Biosyn's products? I wonder who it is. But that's a whole thing over there. Like, yeah, having him come back is just irritating to me. And then him having a canister at the end. Like, I sat there for 2.5 hours. Like, I don't think I like a Jurassic Park film.
Oh my
I don't
god,
think
that
I like
must be
anything
so
about Jurassic Park.
heartbreaking.
It's devastating. And
I think that Jurassic World Dominion is coming up for the most picked as worst sequel. I don't think we're far off more people picking that for their worst sequel than any
People
other movie.
are angry about it, and I think that's because the first one is one of the best films ever. I don't think there's anything about it.
Yeah.
I think the second film is fine. It's got a problem. It follows Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park 3 does lose its way, and it's got some really stupid plot points. Like,
yes, yeah.
It's
I
such a
mean,
dumb film.
Tia Leone
yeah,
shouting Ben.
and the little kid
Like,
just survives.
how does
all
the
the
kid
time.
survive? How does the kid survive in any way on that island?
I think Jurassic World, they had good intentions. Fallen Kingdom, I mean, they tried something different at the end of that film, and you either love it or hate it. But by the end of that film, you think, finally, we've got dinosaurs roaming the earth. And I think that's what anyone wanted to see from the end of the first Jurassic Park, when pterodactyls are flying away like next to the helicopter. You think, that's cool, let's see that. It's only taken like 900 films to get this point. And then you get to Dominion and they announce all the people at back. You think, brilliant, can't wait to see that film. I can't wait to see them all interact with loads of dinosaurs walking the earth like The Walking Dead. And then that doesn't happen. Do you think they should have waited? We've gone right off topic somewhere. Do you think they should have waited to after the pandemic to make that film?
I believe
Do you think
so.
that would have helped?
Having watched it, and some of the stuff's even more pronounced because it was the same summer as Top Gun Maverick, which was a film filmed before the pandemic.
Yes.
And I mean, I loved Top Gun Maverick. I went in hoping to not like it because my friend was telling me to watch it, and I was like, fine, I'll spite you, I'll go watch it and not like it. And I had the best time with it. And it's like, it feels real and kinetic and tactile. It feels part of our world. Whereas when I watched Dominion, because you got to shoot things in a certain way, you've got to make sure that not too many people are together because it's the pandemic. And I sympathize entirely with them, and it's a lot of the problem with some of the more recent Marvels ones. They clearly have just been filmed in a sound studio with like
By
a couple of
themselves,
people
yeah.
at any one time, and that's part of the problem with it. But I think we'll look back at these roster of blockbusters and go, well, maybe we should have just waited. Maybe we should have just not had. But then I'm not even sure if they would have had a film that would satisfy that kind of like that hint of gold of like, well, what if dinosaurs are everywhere? And I'm not sure they would have had that film, because if anything, it might have resembled at a push the Godzilla film from any of the Godzilla films, basically, that have come recently, of like giant monsters rampaging around the world.
Yeah.
And those films are fun when it's the monsters, but when it's the humans, I could just not watch those bits, and I'm a bit.
That's because they forgot to write them. That's why. It's quite clear. I've watched all those films.
But I mean, I'll absolutely watch another one of them because it's always ridiculous when you get like Godzilla fighting whichever one of the ridiculous monsters
but
it
then
is.
they got the brilliant Sally Hawkins, and she gets crushed by a bit of ice in the second one after just saying nothing. It's a bizarre film. What is your best ever sequel?
So my best ever sequel is Batman Returns. I love Batman Returns. It is so my dad showed me this when I was very young, like I think I was 4 or 5, and I got obsessed with Batman and Batman Returns.
Brilliant.
And as I get older, Batman Returns is the cool, sexy one, and it's weird and it's dark. And I rewatched it again today, and I was like, this film is just everything I want from a superhero blockbuster I never get. Like I love, I particularly love Danny DeVito in it. Like he's never been as weird as he is in this film, as kind of sexual and repugnant. And he's just, every time I watch him, like I'm watching Danny DeVito and being just the most repulsive little guy I've ever seen. I'm in love with him. Yeah.
His transformation's so good in this film. Just you forget that he's not that. I know he's a short man.
Yeah.
In real life, but just the prosthetics, the nose, and the way he walks, and the hands, it's just like, oh, that's just how he is every day. I'd imagine, and I know he's not because he's a comedy genius. But so you started watching this at 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, it was.
Your dad's
it was on
a legend.
VHS. Yeah, no, he a lot of inappropriate stuff to watch from my dad. Like when I was 11, I sneakily watched Predator, which is an 18. I'd already asked to watch it, and he'd said no, and I watched it with a friend, and then told him. And his punishment was then to lend me 18 certificated films, like, and he loves sci-fi horror.
Brilliant.
So I watched like Aliens, The Fly when I was like 11, like far too young to be watching like Jeff Goldblum, like lose all his body parts and turn into a giant fly. But I did, and and like he took me to see Gladiator. I'm shorter than I stopped growing when I was like 12, but I was a really tall like 10, 11-year-old. So he took me to watch Gladiator when I was like 10 in the cinema, and it was like. I wasn't ID because I was with him, and B, I was a big lad, so and that was like a lot of my like early cinema memories are with him. I like him renting stuff from Blockbuster for me or showing them to me. Some good, some bad. Like I distinctly remember the summer we watched Speed and then Speed 2 in terms of sequels. And yeah, Speed is one of my favorite films, and Speed 2 is Speed 2. Yeah, but yeah, Batman Returns
big drop.
is just. Yeah, and I watch it like 3 or 4 times a year right now. I've got a bit too obsessed with it. I've got like my partner did me this art print of the weird duck boat car thing he has. She got an artist to draw it, and yeah, I love the art design. I love the look, the feel, the sound, and like the progression from this and Batman. So like the first Batman is Batman directed by Tim Burton, so it's still primarily in like the what Batman is. And this is Tim Burton's Batman. So it's like, it's even more black and white and grey. It's even more weird characters doing weird things. Like you got Pee Wee Herman at the start throwing his weird penguin boy into a river and goes from there. Christopher Walken's in this and he's utterly terrifying. Michelle Pfeiffer is Michelle Pfeiffer, and like, yeah. And it's just like, I miss like sexy blockbusters. I miss it when they, it was that they actually interacted in real life, and it wasn't just like, person A, person B stands together, says scripted lines, then there's CGI explosion behind them. In this, it's like Batman fucks. I am allowed to swear, yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Batman fucks.
Swear as much as you like.
That's my measure of like a good Batman, is if he has sex. Like I liked the last Batman because while he was depressed, it was clear that he'd have sex. Like that's the thing. I think he'd cry afterwards, but he would at least, when I watched like, I don't know, George Clooney's Batman never once got near a woman. That's the problem there. He like, oh man, I don't mind whichever way Batman wants to go. But yeah, it's clear that he'd never had any human interaction with a person. Whereas Michael Keaton's Batman is sexy as. So like, he's cool, he's sexy. He has all this chemistry of Catwoman. And he got this weird little freak like the Penguin running around. I love it. I love everything about this film.
Yeah. So did you watch this one after you watched Batman?
I want to say yes. I want to say my dad would have done it that way around, but it was so long ago. I just remember watching these two films hard, and this one is the one that has stayed. Yeah. Like I've rewatched the Burton Batman. I've seen all that stuff, but the one if like this is my Christmas film.
One of my questions was, do you think this is a Christmas film?
Absolutely. There's mistletoe. There's a Christmas tree. one of the last lines is "Merry Christmas, Master Wayne," I think it is. And yeah, like
it is. Yeah,
I think any film set at Christmas is a Christmas film to me. Like that's why I love like things like Die Hard or Black Christmas or like I think It's a Wonderful Life is a masterpiece, but only about 20 minutes is at Christmas. So it's a bit for me like, is this a Christmas film? Whereas Batman Returns is solidly Christmas, just in a really weird way.
I mean, it's the biggest Christmas tree, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah.
And the key plot point is the Christmas tree.
It's true.
Even though it was released in June. So yeah, came out in June, despite being a Christmassy kind of.
Is that
movie.
because it was released in America in Christmas, and then at that point,
No, it was released in the US.
Even in the US.
Yeah,
Well, I've got no excuses. Then that's really does.
But I mean, like Die Hard and Iron Man 3 are both set at Christmas, and they would have been big summer releases. I think it's only quite recently for me that it's felt like Christmas has kind of become a competitor to the summer. Like it's always felt a bit like there's that lag. Like, there's always been summer blockbusters since like Star Wars and Jaws, and it's just Christmas kind of slowly catches up, and now we get Avatar 2 over Christmas, which makes all the money.
Well, yeah, because the Lord of the Rings were all over Christmas. I think the early Harry Potters were Christmassy films, and they swapped that out for big summer.
Well, I think
tempos.
Christmas is the big time now, isn't it? So certainly in the States, like Boxing Day is like cinema day essentially over there, and I think the summer less so because people are out and about and doing stuff and don't want to sit in a dark room. I mean, I'm the complete opposite, to be honest. When it's hot outside, I want to be sat in a dark, cold room,
Air conditioning
as much as possible. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a big selling point, air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, I was perfect age for this because I was 11 when this came out.
Oh wow!
And I remember watching this in the cinema and
wow.
watching Batman just before, like we got Batman on video. And watching Batman just before going to watch this at the cinema, and being really excited, slightly Batman obsessed at this point. Had a Batman lunchbox, and I was telling my wife yesterday about like the penguin toy that I had that used to shoot an umbrella, and the Batmobile that used to like fold, all the armor used to fold out over it and stuff like that. I remember having. Yeah,
The toys are amazing.
Quality.
Yeah, I had a little one of the boats, like the thing he is going through the tunnel in. I've got not anymore.
Yeah.
I had it.
I love that little ducky boat car thing. I really want one of those. It's so cool.
I don't think I watched this until I was like proper adulty, I think, or at least mid-teenager. I didn't see it in '92, and when I first did see it, I wasn't a fan, guys.
Really?
I was not on board with Batman Returns for probably years until I got a box set. I think of the Blu-ray.
You are
box
wrong.
Set. I know. Hands up, I am definitely wrong because it's a great Batman film. But I just think because I love the first Batman so much, and the Joker Jack just goes hell for leather in that film, and he still sells every scene. And Keaton is also brilliant in both of these. But I don't know, I just didn't connect for ages for Batman Returns. But now I do. I think Michelle Pfeiffer's absolutely in this film is incredible. And just hearing stories about how she had to be sewn into her costume and couldn't breathe for hours and stuff. And just the combination of the three of them. And then Christopher Walken as the extra bad guy. It's just, he doesn't even get a name in normally. It's incredibly put together. And plus it's a brilliant Tim Burton film.
It's like Tim Burton before he discovered CGI and got a bit I love Burton in the 80s and 90s. I love that kind of practical vibe he has, that kind of look and feel. Like rewatching it today, it still looks beautiful. It's still a beautifully shot film.
Yeah.
And like you say about Pfeiffer, Pfeiffer being a late addition, I think it was Annette Bening was cast and then was pregnant, so she obviously couldn't be this Catwoman because this Catwoman is...
Yeah, you couldn't be pregnant in that suit. There's no
all of
hiding
it.
that.
Yes, but Michelle Pfeiffer is phenomenal, and it's such a fascinating... I think the sexual politics of this film is fascinating because she is this kind of almost parody of a working girl, from the start, and is that kind of self-deprecating working girl that you see in all these kind of 80s comedies. But her fate is to be killed off by her boss and then come back as kind of a vengeful ball of fury that's just destroying people. And then obviously has this chemistry with Keaton's Batman.
It's hot.
And then Walken is a massive predator and monster in this. And then you're watching the Penguin say he wants to show some woman his French flipper trick.
Yeah.
I have to say
the badge bit when he's just there for about 5 minutes putting a badge on, having a good old grope.
Is it, are you the hottest young something like that? Yeah. But it's the bit where he bites the guy's nose. It just sticks in my head. Him saying it could be worse. We could be gushing. Your nose could be gushing blood.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And then he bites nose. this film was dark and weird. I understand why like parents hated it because the villain's plot is to kidnap all the kids and kill them. And that's what it is from the very start. That's what he's doing from the very first time he emerges from the sewer. That's his plan. He gets distracted and goes off and does politics, but he collects all the names. He's like, this is my backup. I'm going to kill all these kids. I'm like, yes, that's what I want you to do. Come on, Marvel, do that. Have kids be killed off. Well, not killed, friends be killed off.
I think Danny DeVito does a great job for being, because there's nothing about him that should be scary, but because he's not like, he can't fight Batman, can he, at any point? But
hey, he's got a machine gun and an umbrella.
Oh, and I love, and none of that feels cheesy in this film, and like it does in the later ones.
The practical effects are great, and I think I watched it last night with my wife, and we sat there going, she was like, "Those penguins do look a bit weird," and I was like, "Yeah, but give me a small person in a penguin suit over crappy CGI any day." Like I would happily take that.
Some of them were real penguins, though, right?
Some of them were real penguins. Yeah,
I think it's like when we get the penguins
at the end,
lifting in Danny DeVito's penguin into the water. Those are definitely men in suits. But I find it kind of an endearing moment because it's weird and it's like the film pauses for something that doesn't need to happen, which is that the penguins lift up their former, I guess, owner or king or whatever he is to them and gives him a burial.
Yeah. I don't know about anyone else, but I had full on like Willy Wonka Oompa Loompa music in my head when they came waddling out to lift Danny DeVito into the water. But yeah, it's brilliant. I've got a question about Catwoman though, before we get any further.
No, go for it.
So, do the cats give her special powers, or do they just? She's not dead. They just wake her up because it's kind of like
I've never really understood what happens here, but I just read it as a comic book movie and something magical happens.
That's what I'm thinking. Is it magical, or does she just wake up with slight brain damage that makes her really vengeful?
I kind of read it that she's a bit brain damaged myself. Like it could be supernatural, but Burton's ones aren't like explicitly supernatural for me. Like even though the Joker gets dunked into a vat of chemicals and drowns and comes back, like again, comic book logic means that people can almost die and then come back, or can die and come back. And like she does have 9 lives, so she does survive the end, even though she gets electrocuted. Maybe there's a supernatural thing to it, but I think at that point for me, it's just that like she's had a massive amount of brain trauma at that point, and that explains a lot of her actions.
Well, falling out of a 10-story building would do that to you, I think.
Yeah.
And I love the flip. I think she plays the two sides of that coin so well. Like you said, the working girl start, and when she, let's say, hits her head and then turns psychotic, I think she's great. So you think she definitely lives at the end?
Yeah, because you see a shot of her, but yeah, I've always interpreted that she is still out there doing stuff, and like my favorite reading of the Burton Schumacher films that I've ever read is that the Schumacher films are the Batman films of the Burton world, and it comes after Bruce Wayne, grief-stricken from the loss of Catwoman, has revealed who he is and retired. And so they made films about Batman, and that's the Schumacher Batman films.
Okay.
Which is satisfying given I don't love the Schumacher films, particularly one of them. I think one of them is quite... I'm always a bit like, have I taken acid? And when I'm watching Batman and Robin, because it kind of...
I mean, Batman and Robin is
bad.
Awful. It's awful.
But it's also total... I admire total vision. I admire when a director has total vision. Like, I can't stand The Cat in the Hat, but I admire it for a total vision of what it is. Like Bo Welch, who's the production designer on this, his one directing time, and it's total vision there, but it just doesn't work. This is total vision that does work.
Yes, yeah. It's not the vision as such that I don't think that works for me in Batman and Robin. It's the one-liners. It's the fact that Arnie talks exclusively in one-liners. There's no dialogue. There's literally just someone says a line and then someone says another line, and none of them interact with anybody.
Batman and Robin is a bunch of characters trying to get their saying in a trailer.
Yes, absolutely.
And a bunch of toys being sold at you, the cool designs in this get warped, and then you've got to have 15 bat suits, and there's going to be Robin and Batgirl and various cars and
credit card
Not good. So what do you think about Batman Forever? Because it's brilliant.
I think I have fun with it. I don't like Val Kilmer in it. I think Val Kilmer doesn't want to be there, and it's quite apparent watching it. But I do enjoy Jim Carrey's buffoonery. Is that what
Yeah.
we called it? Yeah. And I think while I am annoyed with the recasting, because I think it was it
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams
Is in this.
is in the first Batman. He's not in
Oh, not
this
in this
one.
one. Okay.
Because he was going to be in this as the Max Shrek character. That was going to be Harvey Dent, and that was going to be the birth of Harvey Dent. But they thought it was too much, so they pulled him out.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and I think Tommy Lee Jones is fun in Batman Forever. It's just I think that the heroes in that are much more pronouncedly not what I want to watch. Like a critique of Batman Returns, which I think is valid, but I disagree with, is that Batman is kind of in the background, and he doesn't say anything until after the half an hour mark. It's not his film, but that for me is a Batman film. A Batman film isn't about Batman. The most interesting Batmans for me are like the ones where it's like about, I don't know, like The Dark Knight is about a criminal underworld responding to the presence of Batman, and then a period of escalation taking place. That's what it's about. Yeah, Batman is a key part of that, but the overarching story for me is this kind of like Michael Mann-esque sprawling crime thriller. And like in here, it's like Gotham is just this like vortex of weirdness, and all these people getting sucked into it and becoming weirder because of it. Like Catwoman is weirder because she has been in Gotham and has experienced Gotham. Max Shrek is a very strange like iteration of a Donald Trump-esque businessman. And like the Penguin was probably always a bit strange, but he feels particularly strange because he's been in the sewers of Gotham for so long, and he's just kind of been warped by this existence he's had. Yeah, I love its darkness.
Do you think they had to try and pose it so they couldn't start with the Penguin in Tim Burton? They had to like not go as weird early. I mean, the Joker's pretty weird, but that film does help build a world for Batman Returns when they can go a little bit more, even more gothic than the first one, to be honest.
I think the thing about the first Batman is that with the Joker is it was always a character, so primarily Batman. If you haven't imagined, I love Batman. Batman is my favorite superhero. So like the Joker's always been there, so it would make sense to have the Joker first. And the Penguin has always felt more like a kind of a roster of villains. Like it's never felt like the Penguin can be the main villain. And like Jack Nicholson as the Joker, like part of the appeal of the first Batman is you've got Jack Nicholson just going whole hog, eating all the scenery and having a whale of a time. And I don't think that that's quite what Danny DeVito's Penguin is. I think he's a weird chap doing his own thing, but he's not like stealing the show.
Yeah.
It's why Michelle Pfeiffer can also like have her own moments. It's why Michelle Pfeiffer has such a cultural impact because of this film, because I don't think you'd have Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson's Joker in the same film, whereas I think you'd have Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Danny DeVito's Penguin, and slithering for Christopher
Max
Walken
Shrek as well.
odd
You
as
need
he
that
is.
kind of that. It's almost like Christopher Walken is the criminal mastermind,
He's the anchor.
and the Penguin is like the blunt instrument kind of thing. Like that's you need that kind of extra, and I think that's kind of why it works, isn't it? It's you're absolutely right. Is that Penguin doesn't feel like he can be a standalone. He's a bit more like in the cartoons. He's a bit kind of in the comics and things. Like he's a bit more. A bit less of a blunt instrument than he is in this movie, I think. But
still
you do need
terrifying.
that kind of. Oh yeah.
And like in the Great Arkham series, he's there and he's a crime boss, but doing his own thing. And it just happens that, like, I love the game Arkham City. I don't know if you've ever played it, but I think it's a fabulous representation of Batman. And it's kind of a bit like Zelda in that there are dungeons you go off to, and each dungeon is themed around a specific villain. So like that again is like the Penguin works as like this kind of like villain, but there are other villains, and like as you've pointed out, Christopher Walken's Max Shrek is probably the main villain here. Like he's the one who is doing all the bad stuff. He's like, he unleashes Penguin, he creates Catwoman, and then he does lots of other stuff that's pretty bad.
He's also the person you would forget that's in this film, though, right?
Yeah.
If you like said the top 5 people in Batman Returns, Christopher Walken's character probably wouldn't be in that.
No, you would probably remember. Is it Michael Gough? Is that the Alfred?
Yeah.
You remember him more than Christopher Walken.
So like Walken's just a nice surprise when it happens, and he's eating like the scenery beautifully, and especially when he's with his son. At that point, he's like, "Run, Dad, leave me," and he's like, "Okay," and leaves him straight away.
Oh yeah, Chip, the son.
Chip is great.
Andrew Buryansky, who was Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Really?
Like, Yeah.
The first one? Which
No,
one?
not the first one,
Oh,
not the original
second
one. The remakey one. I
Okay,
think.
the 2000 and something.
Yeah,
Rich,
Rich, you've got to
He's
nail
like-
this down. And when you say remake, you think as well. There's been about 5 of them, I think.
So he's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's the beginning, the 2006 one.
Oh, and even worse.
Is that the
Texas
Matthew McConaughey
Chainsaw.
one? That
No, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, which is in the 90s. I haven't seen.
Oh,
it.
he was in the 2003 one as well.
Okay,
The other.
that's the Michael Bay produced one with Jessica Biel as the final girl, and it's
That's the one. Yeah.
original remade for the 2000s. Some horror fans like it. I don't remember anything about it.
do you have a favourite scene of Batman Returns?
Oh, favorite scene. It's got to be one of the penguin moments. I do love the bit when he bites the guy's nose. That feels like a weird one to pick out. There's lots of little moments, like the bit where Batman is sat on his own brooding, and then the like bat symbol pings down into his room. That's like
It's ridiculous, but it's brilliant.
fabulous. And like
At that point, my wife was like, "Does Bruce Wayne just sit there on his own, staring at the wall?"
I think he does.
until the bat symbol
We
goes
didn't have
off.
mobile
I
phones,
was
did
like,
we? So
yeah, I think that's all he was doing. I think he was just waiting for there to be some kind of crime. Like, oh god, what's the best bit? Maybe it is the arrival of the boat duck.
that's
Because
cool.
we get that entire scene, like we get like the repeat of the mistletoe line, and so they find out who they are, and then they're like, "Do we fight now?" Which is lovely. Like one of the things I love about this film is how it represents heroes and villains. Like it seems to be a bit lost for me. Like today, like now we know who we are. Do we need to fight, or can we just like do that when we're in costume? Is that something we just do when we're in costume? And then you get Danny DeVito's amazing like blowing up the bottom of this room and coming up and saying like, "You didn't invite me, so I crashed." One of my favorite lines of this film. You get Christopher Walken's Shrek being slippery and Chip being heroic.
Is that the bit when the Penguin pretty much gives away his plan before he's put the plan into
Yeah.
play?
Yeah. Classic villain faux pas there. Like, yeah.
I'm telling you what I'm going to do because I haven't sent my men out yet to do it. But this is what their plan's doing. About half an hour, they're going to be out there.
Giving you a head start.
Head
It's
start.
all right. Hope Batman's not in this room to foil the plot.
I loved the Catwoman introduction when she blows up the building behind her. Like, and she lands. It's just, I think that's quite iconic.
I was just going to say that Catwoman scene where she essentially somersaults across the road for no reason.
Oh,
Like,
man.
she could have walked quite easily, just walked across the road, but just does somersaults across the road and
That's
just like
character building,
ta-da!
right?
I don't know if I've got a favourite scene that you guys haven't mentioned, but I mean, like I've said already, the ducky boat just steals the show for me. Just wherever the ducky boat car thing goes, I'm happy.
And how does he get that made in the sewer? Like, how? If I were to think too hard about this film that I utterly am devoted to, I would work out, well, why is this zoo abandoned?
Yeah.
Why? How does he have this ducky boat? Who makes all these umbrellas for him? You could pull this one
Well,
apart.
yeah,
but then
I mean, he's
it's-
got like all his little minions are like really tech geniuses because they all hack the Batmobile.
Yeah, they
don't
can hack the Batmobile.
Yeah,
That's
so-
I love.
That's a
that
good scene.
bit where it's like Oswald's School of Driving, and it's like Danny DeVito hamming it up, and you like get this shot outside of his like battle bus thing, shaking back and forth because he's having the whale of a time. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like he has vision, and he has the people
yeah.
to make his vision come true.
Absolutely, he's recruited like half of Apple by the look of it to like build his stuff for him.
We do have to quickly talk about future Keaton because he was meant to do a Batman 3, which was Batman Forever, and he famously went, "If Tim Burton's not doing it, I'm not doing it." He read the script and went, "No, I'm good, thank you." Time of recording, none of us have seen The Flash, but Keaton is coming back.
I've seen the trailer. Yeah.
Are you excited about this? Keaton is back as Batman. That Batman.
Okay, The Flash is a moral dilemma for me because obviously the lead actor has done everything that. Well, he's been accused of a lot of stuff. Some of it
Our lawyers have told us to
very
say.
strange. I'll say this. Some of the stuff he's accused of is very strange. But my Batman is back.
Yeah.
Like, Michael Keaton is my Batman. Like, when they cancelled Batgirl, I was angry because Brendan Fraser was the villain, and I was angry because J.K. Simmons was back as Commissioner Gordon, and he was a fun for like the scene he's in, or the two scenes maybe. But Michael Keaton was back as Batman, so that made me angry. So I think I have to be excited for The Flash, in spite of the fact that I'm like, yeah, but there's all that stuff over there that's like this legal grey awfulness. But Michael Keaton's Batman, so...
And it's another weird dead rubber of a movie because James Gunn's going to change it all.
What is your most disappointing sequel?
So we've talked about Jurassic World Dominion.
It's not
I
your
won't
worst.
pick
It's not
that.
your worst.
Yeah.
It's the most disappointing. So it doesn't have to be a bad film, mate. It just broke your heart a little bit.
I won't pick Evil Dead Rises, but I did find that disappointing. It's a recent disappointment that's in my head.
We
But
can talk about that if you want. Because
no. I'm not passionate.
not ready
about
to
it.
talk about that yet, too.
No, I think it is Rise of Skywalker, and I think it.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, I know I'm picking another one that I'm sure a lot of people go like this one, but it is just like I'm right now working my way through the Star Wars films,
Right.
And I've rewatched the prequels, and
And
I
how was
guess
that
my
experience
issue.
for you?
I forgot how bad the acting is in the first one and the second one. I think the third one is great. I think the first two have I think there's like a look and feel to them that is wonderful. But then when you have like Ewan McGregor deliver the lines like he's only just been handed a piece of paper and he's like, right, what am I doing now? Okay, fine.
Probably because he has just been handed a piece of paper.
And I sympathise because it's like one of the first films that was shot mostly in CGI. So like
I think
actors.
I think Attack of the Clones possibly was first with digital cameras or something crazy.
Yeah, so
like that.
they've been thrown into like this like world that actors haven't really had to deal with before that much. Like CGI has been more woven into the films than it was in those ones. But so my point is like the thing about the prequels is there's a clear story going on there. There's a clear arc for those three films. Lucas has a clear idea of where he's going, and that pays off in the third one wonderfully. Even if I don't think the acting gets ever anywhere I call good, by the third one you're so invested. Whereas
and I think you call good. Sorry.
oh god, I'm so Catholic. Right, anyway, but Rise of Skywalker, like I guess my problem I find disappointing because I'm not a massive fan of Last Jedi. I think it's perfectly fine and I can watch it, but there's stuff in it I'm like, I wouldn't do that. But once you've done it, you've done it. Once you've committed to the bit, you committed to the bit. And Rise of Skywalker spent so much of its running time undoing what was done during The Last Jedi that it doesn't have anything satisfying to itself, and that it has to rush things, which is like with Palpatine being back is a rush thing. If you want to bring Palpatine back, set it up like in The Force Awakens that he's going to come back. Like,
And Dave knows why I'm laughing. Every time someone mentions Palpatine being back, all I can think of is Poe just going, and Palpatine's back for some reason.
yeah, the delivery of that line is wonderful.
He
like,
literally
Oscar
says
Isaac is
somehow.
like, I'm contractually obliged to say this line,
Yeah.
but I don't want to say it. And it's just, I didn't realize until quite recently that I was hurt by Rise of Skywalker. I mean, this is really like I couldn't commit
keep
to
going.
Star Wars in the same way that I had before, and now I can.
Yeah.
I've kind of got past it, but for a couple of years, I was like, I liked The Mandalorian because it's Star Wars, but not important. Like it's like Star Wars where there's a guy and a little baby Yoda thing, and that's it. And I was like, I like this. And then when it would get more and more like Luke Skywalker pops up, I was like, I don't like this. I just want like I want the feel of Star Wars, but not the story. And I realized that with Rise of Skywalker, like because it bungles the entire trilogy, and it kind of reinforces there is no singular narrative of that trilogy. Like all this talent is there. It's got some of the best acting of the entire series. It's got like Adam Driver, Oscar Isaacs. Is it John Boyega? He's in that, isn't he?
John
He is,
Boyega.
John Boyega. Donald Gleeson. Donald Gleeson is one of my favourite actors to watch. I think he's a wonderful actor. I hate the Peter Rabbit films, and I think he's wonderful in it. But yeah, they're all wasted. And then by the end of Rise of Skywalker, I was just like crushed by it a bit. Like I don't think it's the worst sequel I've seen, but it is one or two or three sequels that makes me genuinely angry. And like another one would talk about, and that is my worst sequel. But this one, it's like I don't think it's badly made, but I think it's made on the hoof, and it's kind of made without like this like singular idea running through the trilogy.
Yeah.
And so you're in this place where like go, yeah, but why are we doing this? Why are we at this point where this is happening?
I think you're right. It's disrespectful, essentially, to launch into a trilogy, to expect us to buy into 3 movies without having a fucking clue what you were going to do. Like, you know, it does feel like it's made up on the hoof. And honestly, like, it's awful.
Yeah.
And we're getting these 3 new Rey movies now, aren't we? This new Rey trilogy.
I mean, we've been
coming.
announced, I think, 6 or 7 Star Wars films at this point. Like, I want that, but I do want a new Star Wars in cinema. I want to watch Star Wars in the cinema again. And
Yeah.
like, I'm watching Star Wars Visions now, which are these like animated shorts. The first series is all anime, which I've only just realized halfway through it. And the second series is like studios from around the world. So like Cartoon Saloon and Aardman are there, and I have a great affinity towards animation. And you're watching like particularly Cartoon Saloon's ones. They do Irish folklore animated, and it's kind of Irish folklore. It's kind of Victorian industrial. It's all these things wrapped into it, and it reminds me that Star Wars can be a lot more than that trilogy ended up being. Like, I think Rogue One is fantastic in the end. I think the first half's a bit messy and all over the place, but how it ends is like nothing I've really seen in modern blockbusters. And I think that I think they're just afraid to take the risks that they need to take. And like The Last Jedi is a risk that didn't pay off for me, but paid off for a lot of people. And I was quite happy for it to be a risk. And Rise of Skywalker is a film that takes no risks, like kills off Chewbacca and then brings him back in 5 minutes. Like,
There's nothing wrong with like Rise of Skywalker. I watched it again the other day, and it's well made. There's some really nicely set pieces, like when Rey and Kylo Ren are fighting on that water planet with the old. That's really nice, and I mean, a lot of the end bit's not bad. The sky, I mean, the fighting up above, not what's kind of going down below. But like Rich said, I think it was just a slap in the face to the paying customers. To be honest, at that point, they were like, "Oh, they're going to see this, whatever." So it doesn't matter what we do. And then obviously the last line is, "Might as well just kick me in the nuts 100 times."
You pretty much, yeah.
It's
I'm not someone who gets angry about movies. I get sad and disappointed when movies are bad. I was viscerally angry at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, like so much so that I out loud in the cinema I said, "Oh, fuck off!" And I was like,
I had a headache because I'd rolled my eyes several times quite aggressively at some of the reveals. And my friend likes to remind me that I was very angry. Also, I have a friend who I go to watch a lot of these big films with, and then we went and got food afterwards. And apparently I was very loud about all the things I hated about a film that had come out 2 days beforehand. I was doing a Homer Simpson, where I was telling everyone what was happening. But I don't feel that guilty because it's Rise of Skywalker, and people need to be warned.
yeah, they do.
Yeah,
I wish
And
it
I'm
was
like
better.
you about the Last Jedi as well. Is I didn't love it. I've gone back to it and like it more now, I think. But I didn't love it at the time. But certainly watching it as a
frustrated
parent,
by the diversion to the casino planet. I'm always a bit like, but they're being chased. You've said that this is really important, and I always am like, I think the humor doesn't quite click with me in this one. Like, I think The Force Awakens is quite good at its humor. I think it's quite a funny film organically, whereas I find it a bit more forced than The Last Jedi. But then because it's Rian Johnson and he can direct, he could direct, like, I don't know, a cup on a table and it would look like the greatest cup you've ever seen. Right, The Last Jedi is beautifully shot and put together, and I do like how it ends. I do like that it's saying that Rey's heritage doesn't matter. That is a beautiful idea that expands it out away from this like family drama that we have for so much of it. And like killing off Snoke is a great idea. It's just some of it's a bit like not as good as it should be. Some of it doesn't.
I think my
click for me.
major problem was Luke Skywalker. Essentially, I just didn't feel like it just didn't ring true with what we'd seen in other movies. And then watching it again as a parent, where he basically just gets so tired he dies, I was like, actually, no, I can appreciate that now.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to have to simmer you down a bit. Now we've got to be hot-headed because this is where this goes beautifully. What is your worst ever sequel?
My worst ever sequel is Terminator Genesis, which I watch every single year.
Why? Why?
yeah, why?
I can't get my head around a Terminator film that's this bad, so I have to watch it to try and find something I like about it, and I like it less each time. I should stop doing this practice, but I have. I did this film a disservice when I saw it because they re-released the Terminator in cinemas about 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, and I went and watched the Terminator in cinema, and it was an amazing experience because, so like, I watched Terminator 2 when I was 8, another one of these like poor parent, well, actually a grandparent let me watch it, so another poor choice on their part. And I watched Terminator 2 when I was 8, and Terminator 2 it's fairly close to my best sequel ever, but I like Batman Returns slightly more. Like, Batman Returns means slightly more to me, but Terminator 2 means a lot. And it's one of those films that if it's on TV at any point, I'll just sit and watch it until I'm told to stop watching it. I'll just be like, no, I'm good here. There's a party, great. I'm just going to watch Terminator 2. This bit's great.
Well, you just say until this bit, and then you realise what comes after that. But you're like, oh, hang on. This bit. And then,
I don't hate the other sequels. Like, I can find stuff to admire in most of them. I think that they're all kind of follies, but also, like I love that Terminator 3 ends with them blowing up the planet. That's wonderful to watch some of Blockbuster ends with nuclear death. But yeah, Terminator Genesis is just on every conceivable level a film I hate. And I hate very few films. I don't tend to hate films because it's too much effort. I mean, obviously the worst sequel ever is either The Son of the Mask or Speed 2. That we can agree on. But this is just, for me, on every conceivable level, I hate it. Like, from the moment it starts, I'm like, oh, we're in a bad territory here. Well, this doesn't click for me. Yeah, like they spend all this time in this film initially setting it up so it looks and feels like Terminator, but it's also clean and sleek, and there's no dirt in the future, and the future feels metallic and not like humanity has lived in it. And the thing about Cameron's vision of the future is it's dirty and there are bones everywhere, and it's utterly horrifying, as it should be, because it's a future where nuclear bombs have blown us up and robots are enslaving us and trying to kill us. So it should be utterly terrifying. And this is like, yeah. And then we've got is it Jay? It's Jay Courtney, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jay Courtney, who
Dave's favourite actor.
I'll say something nice. I like him as Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad films. I think he's a fun Captain Boomerang. He is having a lot of fun there.
I'll jump on that before we slag him off. Yeah, he's lovely in that film.
Him as Carl Reese is one of the great bit of miscasting, because Carl Reese is he's small, he's thin, he's weedy. The idea is that he's not, a super soldier. It's that he's like had to survive and is scrappy. And Jay is built. He's built. He's
man, he's got like a 9-pack.
He lacks any chemistry of anyone on screen, which is not necessarily all his fault, because everyone else is kind of rubbish in this. Jason Clarke is John Connor, and he's awful in this. He's bland and awful, and there's a twist, and I guess spoilers, but
go for it.
They spoiled it in the trailer. They revealed in the trailer that he was going to be a new Terminator, and
I can't believe they did that.
That doesn't
they
come
revealed
to
that
about...
in the trailer.
The first trailer, pretty much.
Oh my god!
And it happens about 2/3 of the way through the film, I think it is. So the plot of this film is they go back in time to the 80s, but the 80s is different. They go forward in time to today, where Skynet is now an IP, an app, something on your phone, and Jason Clarke's John Connor is there as a Terminator, but he's a weird, not liquid metal, but like
nanobot kind of
like
thing.
the thing in Big Hero 6.
Yeah.
And that's what he is. Anyway, that's fine. But they revealed this in a trailer beforehand, and it was a choice. He spends his entire time monologuing this dirge that's terrible. Matt Smith, bless him, is in this for about 3 minutes, and I still remember the promo shot of him. They did this promo shoot of them firing guns on an airfield.
Oh, look it up! It's brilliant. Yeah,
and Matt Smith is one of them, and it's like, why is he here? Like, they had all this mystery of who Matt Smith is, and he's barely used in this film.
He reeks of a man that said, "You're going to have a massive part in the sequel to this." And then that never happened.
To link him back into Rise of Skywalker, he was in that, and they cut him out. I think he was a young Palpatine, and they cut him out of the film. So, yeah.
Wow.
There we are.
Oh, okay.
So Matt Smith has terrible luck when it comes to blockbusters. He has I like Matt Smith a lot. I think he's a really fun actor, but he has terrible luck when it comes to blockbusters. Then we go into the 80s, and they recreate the Terminator several times, which I wouldn't do, because the Terminator is a near perfect film, and if you're not a near perfect film, you shouldn't be recreating a near perfect film. That's a folly. And then we get the Terminator, and we get Sarah Connor, and Terminator is now known as Pops and is played by Arnie, because Arnie always plays the Terminator, which never makes sense to me, because it's an infiltration unit, so there should only be one Arnie.
Yeah.
I've never understood that, and I kind of accept it in Terminator 2 because it's fun to have Arnie back. So he's fine. He's played this part many times before. He is as Arnie as he is. And then we have Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor. And so my partner didn't watch this with me, but she watched 5 minutes, and she asked if Sarah Connor was a robot in this because of Emilia Clarke's acting.
That's so mean.
Oh.
It is, and I didn't say it, so it's fine.
I love Emilia
yeah,
Clarke.
so do
I
I.
absolutely love Emilia Clarke, but she is not Linda Hamilton.
No, and she doesn't. She doesn't fit this, and
she's only 5 foot tall, isn't she? She's not.
Yeah, and they make a joke of that. Like, they have this at one point they get arrested, and there's a photo shoot for them in the police station. Yeah, she's not great in this at all. And the way Sarah Connor is written is just like they're trying to find the sweet spot between 1 and 2, but they kind of just fly off the runway and into I don't know, a factory made of glass. It's terrible. And also, I forgot to say, J.K. Simmons is in this for a bit. And J.K. Simmons, bless him, love him, he's fabulous, but he definitely says yes to everything that's offered to him. Like, and he's always great. Like, he's actually fun in this, but his part's like a cop who meets Carl Reese in the past and is there in the future.
I read why he did this film today.
Why did he do it?
He did this film because his daughter was a fan of Jay Courtney. That's what it says on IMDb trivia. So it's not always true, but it did make me laugh. And I was like, that's a weird reason to make a film, JK. And then Jay Courtney recorded a nice message for the daughter, so he got something out of it. And you get to star with Schwarzenegger. I think it's fun, right?
Sure. And then this film goes on and is just a slog, a bore. It's dull. And the other thing I find unforgivable is they bring back Joe Morton's character, who is, I forget his name, but he's the scientist in the second one.
Dyson, yeah.
Miles Dyson.
Yeah, they bring back Miles Dyson because Miles Dyson and his son are in this for reasons, because they think it's cute. But they don't bring back Joe Morton. I'm a bit like, but Joe Morton is alive and he's been in films. He still acts. He's in the Snyder films. You could bring him into this and I'd forgive you a bit if you brought back Joe Morton, who I love, who I think is fabulous.
He's great, yeah.
He's in the Speed films and he's a lot of fun in Speed 1 and he's barely in Speed 2, so I forgive it. And yeah, I hate this film. It's a slog. It's boring and neutered and then ends with a tease of a sequel.
It's soulless. It's absolutely soulless.
And everyone's monologuing all the time. Everyone's giving these big speeches, and it's like no one here has like if you've got a speechy film, they've got to have great voices. You've got to have Patrick Stewart in the mix or something like that. And it opens with Carl Reese's narration, and you also get a lot from Sarah Connor, and it's just badly written, poorly delivered, and it's this problem with the Terminator films that they're all trying to start new series, like. They all have to have stuff set up that isn't resolved. So we never find out who sent Arnie's pops back.
Thank you. What the fuck was that about? I mean, again, I'm guessing that was meant to come in the sequels that never made it.
So like, I don't know if you will have watched into the credits, but there is an end credit scene.
I did, and I even text Rich because I know how trigger happy he is at the end of credits.
Yeah. There's a glowing red ball, and there's the hologram of Matt Smith, and it's like, Skynet will be back in the sequel. And thankfully, this film did not make enough money for that sequel.
No. I mean, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. I hadn't watched it until today. I watched it for the first time ever today.
I must apologise.
That's what we do.
Fucking hell, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's so dull. Like, honest, I text Dave about 20 minutes in and I've got no idea what's happening. Like, I'm baffled, absolutely baffled by what's going on. And Dave's like, I've just finished watching it and I don't know what happened either. And it didn't get any better. And it just, in the middle, just drags so much. It's so dull. I think I fell asleep for about 5 minutes and didn't notice. It made no difference.
Even the action's boring. And
it
is.
To say that about a Terminator film is staggering, because that's what the first two films, especially the second one, is known for. Especially set pieces. Like the first Terminator film when Schwarzenegger's going for the police headquarters is fucking brilliant. And the bit in the club is also good. And then you get to this and it's just mind-boggling, boring, soulless, like no one's got any chemistry. I can't understand. So we start off in the future, in like 2000 whatever. Then we go back to 1984. But then for some reason we make a detour to 2017.
Whenever the film came out, yeah.
Or 15 or whatever it was. Because he had a dream of something or other in the middle
Basically,
of it.
he has like fake memories start like putting himself into... I must stress, we should always go with what Looper says. And Looper says, and Austin Powers too, explicitly tells us not to overthink the time travel because you'll hurt your head. Like,
well, that's the bit, because he tells his younger self at the end to go look in a mirror and say this line to you. And that must put so much pressure on that small boy to once a day just go look yourself in the mirror and go, Cybernet is Genesis and Genesis is Cybernet. All right, Mum, ready to go now, school.
Why would the police
what is wrong
bring
with that
in
small
a
boy?
young boy who has the same fingerprints? I don't understand why that is. I think they'd just be like, there's an issue in the system, not let's bring that young boy in to meet his future self and give him a complexion. Like,
and in most time travel films, that is a no-go. They can't go near each other, a younger self and older self, right? No. If they touch each other, bad things are going to happen. I'm thinking Time Cop here.
Or 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys, something like that. Oh man, it's shit. And why is Genesis spelt with a Y?
I have no idea. I can't explain the choice in that. I guess it's to make a boring title less boring. I don't know. Like, why is it called Terminator Genesis? Because it's not about the beginning of Terminator. That's Terminator Salvation is about the beginning of Terminator, because that's set in the future. Like, that's set after the fall of man. And I mean, that's not a great film, but that at least gets some stuff right for me. Like,
That's another one I haven't actually seen.
It's very
So
boring.
I thought this was going to be that, basically. I thought Genesis, that means the start of all this, right? So it's going to be the awakening of Skynet, essentially. That's what I thought it was going to be. And I was really disappointed that it wasn't. Because
Have you seen Dark Fate?
I have seen Dark Fate.
How does I think Dark Fate? I kind of think Dark Fate would be better for me if there was not Arnie or Linda Hamilton in it. I think if it was just new people and new Terminators.
I didn't hate it. I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it.
But can you remember it?
You know, no, not
I can't
massively.
remember anything about it.
I remember
I
a
get
bit
confused
in
about which ones I've seen and which ones are which.
immigration center where they're like going through and the Terminator can come and. I remember the Terminator being able to duplicate itself and have two versions of itself. One is its skin, one is its body, which is kind of cool. There's cool ideas there. There are no cool ideas here. Like Genesis has no cool ideas, and
or anything slightly cool in this is from the other movies,
which makes it instantly less cool. And it doesn't even look good or sound good. Like we talked about Rise of Skywalker. Like these two films make me really angry, but Rise of Skywalker at least looks and sounds pretty decent. Like it has at least a fun score from Williams and is shot well. This would be a 2-star film, but it's a 1-star film because it's a Terminator film, and it should be better. And like in a world where you can have, I don't know, Prey, which is a similarly legacy like 80s action franchise being rehabilitated. You can do the same here. You can do something fun and interesting. You also have like a wealth of a timeline with time travel. So you can go to any point in Sarah Connor's timeline or the Connors timeline that gets you to that point and have a Terminator story. And so you could have, I don't know, Wild West Terminator or anything really. You could have it set in the 20s
what if Terminator
or the 30s.
comes back in the 70s to like 8-year-old Sarah Connor? Show me that bit.
Yeah, we have like, briefest of flashbacks to that, and that would be a good story.
That would have been a better film, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because you'd have a fun
100%
recreation of the
film.
70s, and it would distinguish you from like all the Stranger Things like films that have come out about the 80s. You could have done something different. Like, there's so much you could have done with this film.
So going in, were you thinking? I mean, you've already watched the trailer that's ruined it for you, right? What were you thinking? Were you okay? It's a Terminator film. Schwarzenegger's back. James Cameron had something to do with this. I
think he said that he was okay with it. I think he said he watched it and said it was the best
certain
Terminator
directions.
since the second one.
Because if they didn't make this, he would got the rights back, and he eventually did get the rights back and made Dark Fate. He's produced that. That's why they rushed this. But this film was so much better if they didn't have like. They were so confident it was going to be a trilogy. So confident it was going to make money. They were like, we can leave massive plot holes from this, and we'll get to it.
And like, to go all the way back to like Batman and Batman Returns. Batman is a total complete film. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and Batman still exists there and after, but the main story is completed.
Yes,
and then you get Batman Returns. So like, you can have sequels to films that leave like a character alive, but doesn't leave threads to dangle for a mythic trilogy. I always get annoyed when I watch modern franchise films that are like trailers for or like teasers for what's coming next. I'm like, no, just give me a good film and then I'll go and watch the next one if this is a good one. That's all you got to do for me now. You're just going to make this a good one and then maybe we'll do another one. Because like Dark Fate mostly resolves itself, but does kind of set up there's going to be a sequel. But so does the Terminator. The Terminator teases into a sequel really nicely. I don't know, like I always dwell on the fact that Terminator 2 takes basic threads, like basic little seeds that are planted really effectively at the end of the Terminator. Like they kill the Terminator, but there's still an arm and there's still a bit of a chip. And that's key to why Skynet can exist in Terminator 2. And that's brilliant. It's brilliant taking those elements and then having them a part of the sequel. I also think there's an arrogance here for me in being like, we're going to redo everything. So we're going to undo Terminator 1 and 2, which always feels like don't do that. Don't undo a brilliant original and one of the greatest sequels ever made. Just
Yeah.
don't try and do that. Like, it works for Halloween films where you're like, we're going to go back and do a sequel after the first Halloween, because most of the Halloween sequels aren't very good or, aren't necessary. But this, it's like, yeah, they like go back and undo all that's happened in the Terminator and then wipe out Terminator 2 and replace it with something that's a rip-off of Terminator 2.
Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't realise quite how little money this made. So
They all make very little money.
budget of 155 million. So 155 million to make. Bearing in mind that probably cost as much again in like promo, and made 89 million.
I think it made more than that, Rich. It did make about
Really?
400 million, but
I think it was big in China. But
it was massive everywhere around the world. Well, I'm saying massive. It made money everywhere else, but
Am I looking at the US?
yeah, but
Oh, okay.
America.
Right.
But you're right. So it was about 155, maybe 200 million to make, and then you're looking at an extra 100 million, 150 marketing, and at that point they were just like, it's not worth carrying on. And I think it nearly. And there was meant to be a TV series as well, so it was meant to help at the same point. And it never happened. And you know what? Thank fuck for that.
But yeah, the Terminator rights get punted around all the time. Like, I don't think any single film.
Would you watch another one?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be hurt again.
This, Die Hard, for a long time, Predator.
Yeah.
And Alien, like those kind of like 70s, 80s franchises that are core pillars of my like transition from family films to like vertical as real films or adult films. Yeah, that I would watch another one of these begrudgingly. I just hope they do like the route that Prey did, which is to take the essence of it and then put it somewhere else. Just put it somewhere else. I don't want Arnie in the next one. I love Arnie to bits. He's a fabulous screen presence. But he's far too old to be playing this part now. Like, he's far too old to be this character. They only make it work in Dark Fate because he's been around for like 30 years. So he's aged into where he is. And they do the same here, but
But they stole that idea from Genesis, didn't they?
But he's called Pops in this, and every time she says
Doesn't
Pops,
matter.
a little bit of me dies watching it. I don't know why. I watch this every year because I'm a sucker for pain, and
Brilliant.
I cannot imagine watching this every year.
I
I
don't
cannot
recommend it.
imagine watching this ever again.
I don't recommend it.
No, it's not one you should watch again, Rich. Is there a sequel from a franchise, so it can be any number, that you didn't like the first one or the first few, but then you liked later on? I mean, earlier we talked about Top Gun 2, and you said you didn't like the first one, which is wrong. But you watched the second one, you're like, hang on, that's good.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do Top Gun Maverick. So my thing about the first Top Gun is I saw it a long time after I should have. I should have watched this when I was a teenager. I watched this when I was about maybe 30. Like, I watched it very recently, and I watched it in an afternoon, and I just didn't get the fuss, and I didn't feel it. Which, I'm sorry, but yeah, like, and then
That's fine.
Top Gun Maverick came along, and I will admit the trailers are really good for Top Gun Maverick, but I was like, oh, but no, I don't really want to be with this character again. And I like Tom Cruise. I love those Mission Impossible films, but it's a Top Gun film. And then I watched Top Gun Maverick, and I realized a lot of why I like it is it kind of fixes stuff about the modern blockbuster for me. So it's like, it has stakes. It has like a real feel like if things go wrong, these characters die. It spends the entirety of the film being like, this is the mission. This is what the mission is. This mission is impossible. And that is exciting. And then it has, like, at the end, it has the mission being done, and they do it. They do the impossible. And Tom Cruise is great in this. And there's a little bit of his Stardust is slightly dimmer. Like, he's allowed a little bit more humanity in. Like, he feels older and a bit less
Showy.
Yeah, and like he has a age-appropriate love interest, which is refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah, we said that as a
absolutely.
positive for us as well.
But the action is phenomenal. I mean, you'd expect putting a very expensive camera into a jet and flying it at great speed would produce some phenomenal footage, but it produces some phenomenal footage. This, because they're doing all the flying pretty much,
Yeah.
it feels authentic in a way that watching other blockbusters where they're in like a studio with surrounded by blue or whatnot. Yeah, this is it. It feels like a sequel done well and done for the right reasons. And I should have had more faith because Christian Maguire is the writer of it, and he has taken the Mission Impossible films. And while I don't think there's a bad Mission Impossible film, what he's turned the Mission Impossible franchise is
Two.
Two is. I haven't watched two in years. I've watched it once, I think, and I remember being like, okay, that was different. And then we moved away from it. But what he's done with the franchise is just like Mission Impossible Fallout is an utter delight from start to finish. Has one of my favorite moments, which is where Henry Cavill reloads his arms, and it feels like he's a creative who can shape an action scene around what Tom Cruise's appeal is. So I should have had faith. And also it's from the director of Tron Legacy, and I love Tron Legacy. It is shiny and stupid and looks beautiful and has a great soundtrack. I'm a sucker for a fantastic soundtrack. It's a good soundtrack.
Oh, Top Gun 2's got a great soundtrack too.
Exactly. And Top Gun 2 is the soundtrack, and it has that look and feel. And it doesn't really matter that the humans are kind of stereotypes because it's a Top Gun film. And also that Tom Cruise is there being a bit more human than he's ever been.
Yeah.
And I mean, I almost cried during the Val Kilmer scene, and I have no real time for Val Kilmer. I think he's a fine actor and he's in some good films. But when it's him meeting, is he Goose or is he Maverick or is he something?
What, Tom Cruise's character?
Iceman, yeah.
When he meets Iceman, it's like I felt myself on the verge of crying, and I only really cry at animated films. So it's got to do something right if I'm crying at a live action film. And there's just all this weight to that kind of moment that even someone who doesn't like Top Gun can feel this weight, and also because it taps into the real life experience of Val Kilmer in this point in his life, and it feels a beautiful moment to include Val Kilmer in the way you can include Val Kilmer. Yeah, I think it's masterful, and I hope that the lesson taken from Hollywood is that they can get back to a place where they'll actually have cameras in a place and film it. That feels like revolutionary. But
well, the other day they announced they're going to do a new F1 film, and it's the director of Top Gun 2, Jared Bruckheimer again. And I think they're actually going to become, for one race only, they're going to be the 11th team or something, and they're going to put cars. And they can't be the 11th team. There's more than 11. I can't actually remember, but they're actually going to put proper cameras in the cars again.
Good.
And film it like Top Gun.
Wow.
I'll watch that. I'll absolutely watch that. Yeah,
I'd watch that.
Yeah. So Top Gun Maverick made me feel things I didn't think I would feel about watching a Top Gun film. I felt emotionally moved by it and gave me chills. And it also is like, as a legacy sequel, it does the legacy well. It isn't just like, I don't know, bring back this old actor who was in the third film and they're in it. It's not like Arnie being in every Terminator film.
Yeah.
It's that we haven't had this film for 40 years or so, and it's back. And it might be the film that saved cinema for me. I don't know. That's always like, what's the film that saved cinema for you? And for me, it's probably actually Godzilla vs. Kong, because that's the first time I saw after the third lockdown. And I almost cried again because I was like, I'm watching a giant ape beat up a giant lizard in the cinema.
Well, you got lucky. I saw the New Mutants, so I didn't have that feeling. I was like, we were probably best have better at home.
Right. Hitman's wife's bodyguard, wasn't it, Dave?
For you it was, yeah.
Yeah, that saved it for me.
But Top Gun was just another experience, like IMAX, and I think it does it like I'm a big Top Gun fan. My family brought me up on Top Gun, and I cried out literally for the whole of that film.
Yeah,
to do that for me, and then to do what it did for you when you're not a fan at all. The first one's ridiculous, and I can understand that because it is quite cheesy, especially when you haven't grown up with it, and the first time you watch it when you're 30. Like, I've met a lot of people recently that are starting to watch 80s films now, and they're like, "Oh, they're not good." I'm like, well, they were. You had to be there. You had to be there. You had to understand. I think Top Gun is one of the best sequels ever made. Top Gun 2 is one of the best sequels ever made now. And
it also feels like part of this movement of surprisingly good sequels, where like the people making the sequel work out what is the thing that needs to be. And like in Top Gun Maverick, it's this like treaty on who Tom Cruise is wrapped into this film. And like in Prey, it's taking the Predator and placing it somewhere and having none of this mythology and just doing an action chase movie. And in Puss in Boots 2,
I love putting them together,
sneaking in like this like treaty on masculinity and like and adding in really good animation, like adding in like some amazing animation. Like what DreamWorks doing with animation is just like the Spider-Versification of DreamWorks is one of my favorite things. Like them making like the bad guys and Puss in Boots 2 look how they look. I just love it. But yeah, Top Gun Maverick is probably, I can't think of a better sequel in recent years. Like,
Yeah.
that isn't like of a franchise that's long running. Like, it's not like it's like the second Lord of the Rings, which were like 3 films filmed together, and you should probably view them as like a giant film being chopped into chunks.
You're sounding very like Ian Nathan now. His description of a sequel is very confusing. What is your dream sequel? And I hope right film for this. So it is the animation one, right?
Yeah,
Cool,
animation.
cool.
My dream sequel is the Road to El Dorado 2. So, first up, Road to El Dorado is my favourite animation of that era. Like, it's like the culmination of a movement in the 90s, which was like a re-embracement of vaguely fairy tale or like adventure stories within animation. So, kind of, Disney did it really well with like The Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Hercules, any of those. That kind of like movement in the 90s was wonderful. It is still wonderful. It's still like probably the best run Disney has ever had. Like, in the history of Disney, they have ups and downs, and we might be on a down now with Disney. I can't quite work out yet where I think Disney are, but they have like ups and downs. They have this, and they go into like, you know, Home on the Range and Chicken Little, which are 2 films not worth watching. And then like DreamWorks, trying to be DreamWorks, copied them and made Road to El Dorado. But Road to El Dorado is this rip-roaring adventure yarn of these 2 idiots ending up in El Dorado, and at the same time is like the Spanish, a platoon of the Spanish army are coming, and they are terrifying, and they go into this city, and there's like internal politics, but it's all light and fun, and Elton John has done songs for it, and I adore it. I think it's one of my favorite animations, and it's not really talked about as much.
Yeah.
But I'd love them to like try and do it again, or try and bring it back with that DreamWorks animated style. Like, bring it so like how they did with Puss in Boots 2, where they took a character that I had very little massive. He's fun, but he's sort of like a parody.
He's a support character, isn't he?
He's a support character. He's a parody, and in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, his journey is beautiful and profound and moving. That kind of idea that you don't have to be the hero. You don't have to be you don't have to be a myth, a legend. You can be just who you are.
Yeah.
And you can live that one life you have. Marry that with like this wonderful animation they've got going at DreamWorks. Like, just the way it looks and feels, the way 3D but adapted. So it's got a bit of 2D to it. It's got a bit of chaos to it. I'm at a place where I'm utterly in love with where animation is, because we've kind of moved beyond Pixar being dominant. We've moved beyond like DreamWorks, that kind of like sarcastic film we've got where it was famous cast taking the mickey out of this film with a series of references to these films from or these popular culture moments of the time. So I'm thinking of like Shark's Tale or Turbo or The Boss Baby. And fun fact about The Boss Baby, I watched it 60 times in a row because my daughter got obsessed with it, and we watched it every day for 2 months.
I've been there.
God.
And it was,
I've been there.
It was the darkest 2 months of my life. I hate that film and will never watch it again.
Luckily, didn't have it with Boss Baby, but Paw
Boss Baby
Patrol,
is,
certainly.
I don't think Paw Patrol is very good. So
No, Paw Patrol is not good. And a memory popped up on my Facebook the other day of a picture of my son watching Paw Patrol on the TV, and my comment was, I love this kid, but if I have to watch one more episode of Paw Patrol, I'm going to burn the house down. Like, it's kind of like...
We're currently in a Lion Guard place. That's the thing my daughter's watching a lot of, and I have to go and go, no more of this, watch something else. If I hear any more of this from the kitchen, I will turn the TV off. So,
How old is your daughter?
she's 6. She gets fixated on watching stuff, whereas my son, who's 3, will watch like 5 minutes of something. We go, bored now, going to go off and do something, and they're very
My son
energies.
is obsessed with watching YouTube videos of Minecraft with shouty, annoying Americans. It could be worse.
Could be worse.
I promise.
Yes.
Have you showed them Road to El Dorado yet? What age are you aiming at?
A couple of times. Well, the daughter definitely. So she has embraced films really quickly. Like, she'll sit through an entire film. We go to the cinema fairly regularly. The first film she saw was Tangled. She'd already watched it, so I took her to the cinema to watch that. But yeah, like, some of my favourite cinema moments now are the ones I've taken her to. Like, there was a Picture House Kids Club of the first 3 Wallace and Gromit shorts, and they mean the world to me. And showing her particularly The Wrong Trousers, which I think is one of the great action films. That train sequence is one of the great action sequences because it's fast, kinetic, and done in claymation. I'm like, how did you do this? How did you make this happen? Yeah. So she quite likes Road to El Dorado. It's not one she reaches for in the same way as, I don't know, The Lion King 2. She prefers the bad Disney sequels.
Oh god, like The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 or
I don't think I've
Pocahontas
watched
Getting
that
Lost
one.
in
But yeah,
London.
Pocahontas 2 and many bad sequels have been watched. But yeah, so bringing it back to this animated sequel, it's like, I think it's time we bring this one back. I think it's time that DreamWorks go back into their vault and pull this one out and be like...
I love that you picked this film because, one, I never heard of it or watched it. I thought it was a Disney film, wasn't. And then reading about it, by the way, I watched it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it too.
I read about it and I was like, they recorded Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh together apparently, and that's why it's so they bounce off so well together.
They do, but Kenneth Branagh in this feels weird.
I did read a line,
strange choice.
I did read a line that said from a review. It says, "Less you know about history, the more enjoyment you get out of the film." And I think that's correct. But then I read that what happened. No one saw it, Russ. No one saw it.
Didn't make any money.
It's like it's a massive bomb.
Yeah.
Didn't even make
I've
its
picked a
money
sequel
back.
to a massive animated bomb, and DreamWorks have several franchises. They don't need to. They're probably going to make another Shrek. They're making another Kung Fu Panda. They could make another Madagascar. There are many franchises for them. DreamWorks made a pair of 2D animated films. This and Prince of Egypt. And Prince of Egypt made enough money to wash its face. It wasn't a hit.
Prince of Egypt's
But
got a musical.
Yeah.
Did they do like Sinbad as well or something?
They did do, but Sinbad's sort of 2D, 3D. So, but yeah, Sinbad will include that. But yeah, like this one was around the same time as Shrek. They were making it, and so you can see like there's like these two like paths that they're kind of like taking themselves down. One is like, well, if 2D animation still has an appeal, we can do the 2D animation. But if it's 3D animation, we've got Shrek, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But yeah, this did not make money, which is
shame.
tragic. And like, yeah, I think it's got some white savior issues. Like, I would definitely recast Tulio Miguel. I was thinking,
But
Oscar
could you?
Isaac.
Because they're the selling point of this film.
No, but you could recast them if you have like Oscar Isaacs and Pedro Pascal. To
Oh
get,
yeah,
like,
I'd watch that. Yep.
yeah.
Yep,
See,
sorry.
you got to get like two zeitgeisty men who are friends, who are of an appropriate ethnicity.
Yeah, okay,
and
I'm with
that's
you.
who I'd go for. And then you get like an exciting director in, and you give them the art style of the Puss in Boots and the bad guys, and have the duo go off. Maybe with Shell. I like Shell. I like Shell as a character because she's
Did you have a crush on her, Ross?
absolutely, she would have been one of my very early crushes.
Yeah, I thought you would.
And then watching her now, I'm like, but you're a smart character. Like, you've got your own initiative and your own drive, and you know what you want to get, which is very rare with female characters in this time. Like,
And Rosie Perez is awesome as well.
yeah, she is. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely a bit of a sexy film. It's definitely a horny film when it comes to like, is it Tulio or Miguel who's in? I think it's Miguel who's having a relationship with her.
No, it's the other one.
Tulio.
And like, there's like this bit when like the priest comes in and like Tulio comes up and he's got rough hair, and then she comes up and it's like, this is a kids' film, and you've definitely implied quite heavily.
And she's a very curvy woman. I've never
She's
seen
very
her
curvy, and
for an animation.
yeah. So you'd probably have her come back. But yeah, I think this is one of those animated films. I think I should be allowed to make it, but
Would you have it now, or would you have done it like 2005?
no, I do it now. I think where animation was in 2005, particularly for DreamWorks, I would probably have hated that version of it.
Yeah.
Just because, in 2005, we were in a place where there were a lot of sub-Shrek-like films. And I think the first two Shrek films are pretty great. Like,
Agreed.
I love the first one, and the second one is a fun sequel. Like, the second one is a really fun sequel. But the versions of it we got, and like it's telling that the first Disney 3D animated film after Dinosaur. So they made Dinosaur, and that wasn't great. But they made Chicken Little, which is as Shrekky as you come. It's Zach Braff is the lead character, and that was the time when he was JD in Scrubs, and like it's this kind of knowing send up of Close Encounters of the Third Kind kind of films. And it's got all these pop culture references, and it's ugly as sin because it's all 3D animation. Where we were in 2005 is not where I want to be. I want us to be today where we've had Into the Spider-Verse, which kind of is a permission structure to studios to be like, you can make these films that aren't photorealistic, that are fun and zany. Like The Mitchells vs. the Machines is one of my favorite films of recent years because of that,
brilliant.
because it has like live action and 2D animation and puppetry, and it has like bits where they'll play the Batman sound effect, and it's got the Rich Mitchell's face in the screen, and yeah, I should watch the film again. I watched that film a lot last year.
It's a great film.
It is.
I'm looking forward to the new Turtles film from that.
Yeah,
kind of
it
animation.
looks great.
Looks great.
Yeah, and it looks great. And like, there's just these films coming out. Like, this looks fun for me as well. This is nice. Like, it's nice to be like, I can take my kids to see this Turtles film, and it's not going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Touch wood. I mean, I haven't seen anything but the trailer. Yeah.
If I gave you a choice between a sequel to the Road to El Dorado or a remake of the Road to El Dorado with, historically correct characters and stuff, which one would you waver towards?
I kind of want them to go to somewhere else. I kind of want them to go to
So you want the road away from El Dorado?
Or the road to, I don't know, Atlantis, or the road to some other mythical city. Like, I like my concern with a remake is always that we'll end up in a place where Disney are, where we get, like, The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and Lady and the Tramp and Little Mermaid being remade, and I'm a bit like, but why are we doing this? Whereas I think if it was a sequel, and also I think there's this thing, like, because of what Puss in Boots 2 does with being a sequel and does with the notion of a hero, I would like that with this, like the notion of a hero, of the kind of like colonial hero, would be fascinating if that was what was being explored. Of like, what does it mean to be an intruder, essentially going to these lands and discovering them? Like, yeah, it would be fascinating to see how that feels.
Essentially, they're Spaniards in Central America just before the conquistadors land, aren't they? So, like, Cortez is real.
Cortez is a monster, but a real monster. Like, he exists, and he's going to burn down this entire forest. Like, he's going to destroy the forest, destroy the people there, put them into slavery, mine it for everything it's worth. That's
what really happened. That's real. Like, that's what the
terrible
Spaniards
story.
Yeah, absolutely. And so something that explores that, maybe, because Cortez doesn't feel like, you don't quite get there with Cortez, I don't think, on this, do you? You don't kind of.
He feels a bit. This film is doing too much.
He seems a bit too deep.
Does.
That's I'm seeing myself out. Carry on, sorry.
I think the narrative does too much here. I think it's going at a terrific pace, which is great when you're watching it, but also means like the chief figure who builds them the boat is a great character, but there's not enough for him there. It's like, he's a great character. There's this great tension between him and this terrifying priest, but because you've got the terrifying priest and you've got Cortez, and they kind of have to both exist, and then Cortez kind of pops up 15 minutes before the end and doesn't reach the city, which is positive for the city because the city would be, destroyed. It feels like he's like this. He's the real threat, but he's a bit more intangible. He's a bit more like, we know he's a threat from the first time we see him. He oozes menace in a way that's really fun. And he never has any jokes. He never has any humor. He's always a humorless figure, which I think makes him even more of an imposing figure for me. But you could do like 20 more minutes, but I'm not sure what you do in that 20 minutes. I'm not sure what we could see that would kind of solve the fact it's doing a lot.
There has been someone, and I'm not going to read all of this, or any of it, to be honest. I'll send you in a chat. But someone has written out a complete plot of the Road to El Dorado 2. But it's about spreading Christianity. I think it's a bit bonkers, the person who wrote it.
I'm excited.
It's in the chat if you want to read it.
Good.
And it starts off, it's set 14 years after the first movie. The Spanish have conquered the New World and established the colony of New Spain.
Okay.
It has got Miguel and Julio and Cher in it, and the horse.
The horse!
It introduces new characters. It seems about spreading Christianity across the local heathens, as he puts it.
That sounds bad.
Yeah.
I don't want that. No, it's not. I don't want that. I don't want it to be about how actually colonizers were good.
Nah.
But it seems that Miguel and Julio have settled somewhere in South America and protecting a hidden city
Okay.
of a certain of people who worship their gods.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't. I tried reading it earlier, and what I came out of it is that doesn't sound fun at all.
It's got to still be fun. It's still got to be them on an adventure. It can't be. It can't be a repeat of like the second act, the second half essentially, which is what that sounds like. That they're in a town and there are people around them and they're interacting with the people, which is fun here because they have a short time together and we've got all the dynamics floating around and we've got Miguel having copious amounts of sex off screen.
He has children in the new one. In his idea, he has children.
Oh, good. So good. That's very wholesome.
Oh man, I loved your pick. I think it's great, and thank you because I'd never watched it before, and I got very confused. And then I watched it, and I thought, I hope it's the animation version he's talking about. There's not a live action somewhere that I've missed.
Those were Russell Bailey's Unequal Sequels. I love talking to Russ. He's great, isn't he?
He's so passionate about film, isn't it? And yeah, I love talking to Russell as well. He is the man.
Yeah.
Great picks.
Great picks. I mean, Batman Returns, brilliant shout. We
Yes.
love a Michael Keaton Batman. Danny DeVito as the Penguin, lovely choice. Terminator Genesis for worst. I mean, no arguments here. It's a big old load of poop.
It's the worst Terminator. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe it's not. It might be.
It's
It might be the
close.
worst.
It's close.
It might be the worst Terminator film, yes.
And then Road to El Dorado that I'd never seen before.
What an absolute delight that was. Can't believe it. Never seen it, never heard of it.
No, it's great.
I'm surprised there wasn't a sequel. I'm surprised that no one watched it back when it was released back in 2001.
Yeah. And if you like the chat we had with Russ, then go and check out his Not Just for Kids podcast. Me and Dave have been on it.
We have been, yeah. We talked
It's
about
a
Ghostbusters.
great listen. We did talk about Ghostbusters. And I think, are we going to be on it again?
Yes, we are going to pop up on the next run. We can't tell you what and when,
No,
but
we don't want to spoil it. But
our voices
you know.
will be heard on that podcast, Not Just for Kids, with Russell Bailey.
Yeah, go give it a listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. And I recommend his animation chats mostly because the man loves animation, really loves animation and knows his shit. So go listen to that. Yeah. What else can we tell him?
While you're off subscribing to Russ's podcast, then why don't you hit subscribe on our podcast too? We'll drop into your pod player of choice every single week and twice a week at the moment whilst we're doing our interview season 5, possibly the best season we've ever done. Some people are calling it our Fast and Furious season because it's an absolute game changer in the franchise. So not to big it up too much, but it's pretty special. It's pretty special. You want to hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, if you want to give some likes, give some hearts, give us 5 stars, tap us out a review if you're an Apple podcast, that would be lovely. We do appreciate those. And if you really, really love us, get yourself over to anotherslice.com/unequal sequel, where you can join our subscription service for just $2.99 a month. You'll get a sequel to this episode, and in fact, a sequel to all of our interview episodes from this season and last season. You can also get some loads of extra content, bonus content, like our Flash review, which you can listen to for absolutely free. You don't even have to subscribe. You can get our Disenfranchised series, and you can pick up our Box Set Mentality series too, both of which are like having a whole extra podcast just for you. If you like what you hear and you want to talk, get in touch, tell us what you thought of Russ's picks, get onto social media. We're at Unequal Sequel on Instagram and Twitter. Or you can send us an email, unequalsequel@hotmail.com.
I'm so glad you get to do that and I don't have to waffle through all that. It confuses me and I think you do a great job every week. Thank you for doing it, sir. I do appreciate it. It's a lot of it. Thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. Go check out Another Slice if you want to hear more from us. It's actually really brilliant. It's like 3 podcasts if I'm trying to get technical about it. Thank you to Russell for being on this week's episode. There is going to be another episode next week.
It's episode 5,
Yeah.
and it's a cracker.
It is a cracker.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it's a great one.
Make sure you subscribe.
And has a big fat sequel chat to the sequel chat. So I've got nothing else to say. Rich, you got anything else to say?
Nope.
It's a goodbye from me, so it's a nice simple bye. Just a bye. Bye. And a goodbye from him.
Bye!
See you on the next one. Sequel to this one. We'll be there. Hopefully you will be too. Bye-bye. I feel like I dragged that out at the end, but I think we did a good job.
We did a good job, yeah.
This week's was a good episode. Next week's another great episode. Season 5 is cracking so far, isn't it?
On fire, mate. On fire.